Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast, where we jam about money, clutter, and food, and the real stuff under this stuff. Join me, Lisa Carpenter, your resident food coach, along with my co-hosts, money coach Jen Turrell and clutter coach Lisa Sharp, as we help you release what's weighing you down and heal your relationship with food, money, and clutter from the inside out.
Welcome to today's episode of All the Stuff. I am Jen Turrell, money coach here with Lisa Carpenter, your nutrition ninja, and Lisa Sharp, who is our clutter coach and space healer. I really like the term space healer, so I like to throw it in whenever I introduce. Because I do think it's interesting. I do think that our spaces hold a lot of stuff in them. I mean, physical stuff, but also the emotional stuff around the physical stuff. Mm-hmm. And being here in my office right now where I do all of my financial stuff and I'm getting my taxes ready as we record this, we were thinking about talking about our paperwork clutter and our journey into tax time. Here in America, we head towards April 15th, which is when we pay our taxes. Though if you pay quarterly taxes, which a lot of the people listening to this probably do if you are self-employed or a small business owner. But we still do have the April 15th deadline as one of those quarterly tax deadlines. So Lisa Sharp and I have talked at different times about systems for handling the paperwork. So I feel like especially when you are self-employed and you don't get that nice, handy, tidy little W-2 from your employer, there's a lot more that goes into keeping track of everything you need to keep track of. And Lisa Carpenter, with you paying off so much of your debt this last year too, I just thought we'd kind of do a quick financial check-in. How does that sound to everybody?
Cool. Very exciting.
That is one of the problems with talking about money is I feel like that is a response a lot of people have is like, oh gosh, more of my stuff.
It's still something that I'm working on embracing. So I don't hate it as much as I used to because I see the value and the importance on it. And I try and put aside time where I really like sit down and go through the things and my bookkeeper comes over. But it's not something that I'm like I get super excited about, but it's a necessary part that I need to be responsible for. So I have to stay aware of the fact that it's like my default to just go like, I don't want to deal with it. So to be uber conscious, kind of like my clients with food logging, right? That they're more successful when they actually stick to some type of plan of logging and staying accountable. The same is true for me for money. So as much as I'm like, I actually do value and appreciate these conversations and having them all the time because it keeps me conscious and thinking about my money.
Well, and I want to grab a book right here. Hang on just a sec.
All right.
It was just slightly out of reach while I had this in. That brings a perspective that I really love. Okay, so the book is called Worth It by Amanda Steinberg, and I recently finished reading it. And just to full disclosure, I was helping with her promotion effort, so I feel very intricately involved with it. But one of my favorite things out of that book was the way she was a video game kid when she was young and played lots of video games. And she talks about her first interaction with money being the gold coins on this game called Kid Icarus, where you go around collecting gold coins and then you have the power to regenerate. So throughout the book, she uses this metaphor of times when both she and her mother hit the reset button and started over. So for instance, when her mother got divorced at 42 and she had been a housewife, she did go to college, which back then I think she did even study something to do with computers, and eventually, after raising her 3 kids, went back into computers after the divorce. But at the divorce point, it was kind of before this sort of conscious uncoupling and all this co-parenting stuff. It was really rough, and she felt like her father, who was a surgeon, went off with his new family and had new kids with his new wife, and they had glittering cars and a pool out in the suburbs, and she and her mom moved, because she was the only one left at home of her 3 sisters, moved downtown Philadelphia to be closer to her mom's work, and they lived in a grubby apartment with their neighbors were like the back doors of restaurants and stuff like that. But her mom did end up managing to retire at 72, which really is only 30 years after entering the workforce, when she really didn't have any career to speak of before that. And also when her businesses failed, when Amanda divorced herself, there are these different times throughout the book. But she talks about hitting the reset button. and really trying to view her money with the sort of detachment and excitement that you view a video game. And I like that idea a lot. Lisa, you still are not smiling. Lisa Carpenter.
No, you know what? As soon as you said, it's not scowling. When you said retirement stuff, that's the one thing that I'm still like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready to look at that. Yet that's the thing that I actually do need to start thinking about, is how am I going to put more money away so that I have enough when I retire, because I'm closer to there than not. I'm closer to there than not, right? Like I'll be 45 this year. So I still have a lot of years in the workforce. Mm-hmm. And I would also like to really be able to fully enjoy my life as I get older and wind down and do more traveling and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, but yeah, I understand the whole point around, you know, gamifying your money, and not, for me, it's not making it this big, heavy, oh, I'm in a face there, right? Not making it like that for me, making it a lot more light and airy-fairy, and I don't need to be afraid of it anymore. So that's a huge shift for me.
Well, and there's one other metaphor that I want to bring from this book. Not that I want the whole episode to be about this book. It's just a few of the concepts and ways of describing it were pretty new to me, and I really liked it. Another one was an idea of roots and wings. And that can sound like, oh, I probably already know what that's talking about. But she brought it up in a way that I hadn't really thought of before, whereas the roots are pretty much anything that's a real, true asset. So your home, the only part of your home that's a real asset to you is the equity you have in it. Mm-hmm. So if you have a paid off home, then that is a full asset. If you have any other property, income property or anything like that, that's an asset. If you're not living in it and you're not paying mortgage on it. Also a business, particularly that can be sold or run without your direct input of time. And then anything that brings in royalties. So like books, music, things that can be sold over and over again once they're created without you having to do a one-on-one session for every single thing, say. So that kind of made me think about it in a new way. And also, obviously, retirement accounts, investment accounts, anything like that. And then the wings are your income that funds your day-to-day lifestyle decisions. So the income being the wings, and the income does need to feed those roots as well at the same time, but the wings can spread wider or be clipped tighter at different times throughout your life, depending on the decisions you're making. Like, do you want to be able to travel more this year, or do you want to put more towards those roots this year? And the earlier you grow the roots, the kind of deeper and broader they can get. But one of the real kind of wake-up moments as I was reading it for me was with us leaving the ranch. That was our biggest and most income-producing route that I had. And leaving that now, I realized that everything else I'm doing really is more freelance. We do have a music catalog that we get royalties from, but it is not, we're not Madonna. We're not getting a lot of ongoing income. We get a trickle of income all the time. Mm-hmm. So just looking at my whole overall picture in terms of like, okay, I need another major route that can support me even when I'm not actively putting time into it, or that I can sell at some point. And I need to be funneling some of the income that I use for other things towards that. So it kind of makes it more just like a balancing between spreading the wings and doing all the things you want in your life and growing those deeper roots for when you're older and don't want to have to put as much time into it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all the time you're putting into your business for things that continue to sell over and over throughout the years. That's putting it towards a root.
Well, and now because we don't have my extra debt load, we make multiple mortgage payments a month, which is amazing how much that pays down, right? How much more that puts into your equity, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to use the right terminology, like I know what I'm talking about. I'm still learning all these words. And we're actually doubling up on our mortgage payment because we got a really great mortgage rate, but we're also fully aware that all the extra we could get ahead over the next 3 years, if that interest rate doubles, which it could potentially do because rates are so low, we could lose kind of the gain because then next time around, right? So it's in our best interest to pay off as much, principal, that's the word I was looking for, as much principal as we can now, so that in 3 years when we renew our mortgage, we're in a better position. And ultimately we just want to get the mortgage paid off.
So is your mortgage variable right now, or is it a fixed interest rate?
No, it's a fixed interest rate.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily have to redo it in 3 years if you don't want to. You could keep the current rate, right?
Mm-hmm. No,
you have to
at the end of 3 years, you have to redo your mortgage and you have to renegotiate your terms of the mortgage.
Really?
Yeah, you don't get to just pay that forward ongoing. No.
Is this a Canadian?
I am baffled by this. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So I may not know what I'm talking about, ladies, so let's not put too much stock in this. But like our mortgage just came up for renewal, so interest rates were better, so we were able to lock in a new rate. But when your rates at the end of your term, you have to renegotiate what that term is going to be. And there was, back in the 80s,
fixed rate.
So you don't have a 30-year mortgage? Like, you don't have like a 15 or 30-year?
Yeah, we do, but it's in like short terms, so the rate will go up and down depending on the terms, right?
That must be a Canadian thing.
But like back in the 80s, I believe it was, interest rates went up so much that people went to renew their mortgages, and they literally, like, their houses weren't worth anything because the interest rates had gone up so much they couldn't afford to make the payments. People were just dropping their keys on the desks of the bank. So in Canada, our rates have been incredibly low, so the banks have had to adjust how much they're actually willing to lend people, because if rates go up, it puts people outside of what they should be paying month to month for living.
That sounds familiar.
Right?
That is interesting, yeah.
So you guys get to roll your mortgage payments over?
If it's fixed, it's fixed.
For
the
like
full
25
term.
years?
If you get a 30-year mortgage, Well, that's if you get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. There are these like ARMs and these different kinds of adjustable rate mortgages, but those are considered crappy mortgages usually. And you usually only get them if you can't qualify for a better fixed rate mortgage. So like my mortgage on this house, I did look into refinancing several times as I saw rates dip lower than they were when we got it. We got this house at 4.375%. And there were a few times it dipped a bit below that. But because we put 20% down and we got a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, when I looked at getting the refi, doing all of the paperwork and having the appraisals done, and, all that stuff, it would probably cost $4,000 to $5,000. So I had to look at was a 1%. The most we could really get was a 1% drop to about 3.8 or so. And it wasn't worth it. It would take years to make up the fees that I would pay up front to negotiate the whole thing. So I decided not to do it.
Once you get your mortgage, you don't negotiate it again for like 25 years?
Not unless you do a refinance. And the only reason to refinance is either to pull equity out, which I know, some people I know who do a lot of income properties, they've refinanced their house like 4 different times. They have a beautiful, huge, lovely house, but they would refinance it to pull the equity out to go put money down on another place. So you might want to do that. Or if you want to switch from a 30 to a 15-year, which has much better interest rates, you might refi. Or if just the rate is so good. But usually it's either pulling equity out or changing the terms of the loan to like a 15-year, which that's kind of what I was wondering about doing, because I would love to get it paid off in 15 years if I could get 2.8% or something instead of 3, even though it would increase our monthly payments, we'd get it paid off so much faster. But if you look at amortization schedules, which shows, so that's the rate at which when you first start a 30-year mortgage, you're paying almost completely interest. And every payment, the interest goes down and the principal goes up. So, even on this house where I think we have relatively low, though I've heard in Canada people have like, did you say you have a 2% mortgage? That's incredible. But I'm also would not want to have to renegotiate every 3 years. That sounds really frustrating to me. But so if every payment that you make that's extra is pure principal. Yeah. As opposed to the, 60% interest and 40% principal, or wherever you're at within your amortization schedule.
Yeah, so it's amortized, I think, over 25 years, but we double up our payments now to pay it down.
That is awesome.
I had no idea. This is very fascinating to me. Now I feel like I need to hop off and go and look at this. I did not realize that. But yeah, people here usually lock into, you can do shorter periods, like you can do 6 months if you wanted. You can do variable rates, you can do fixed rates. 3-year terms, 5-year terms. Sometimes people will go longer than that, but we completely timed our mortgage renewal around when the elections will be in the U.S. because they influence the rates. Interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, so we've kind of veered off quite a bit from taxes and paperwork, but this is interesting too because, I mean, I think both buying a house and refinancing a house are usually, well, at least here it's a really big decision whether to go refinance a house, and often they scrutinize all of your financials just as closely as they do for when you buy. So, for instance, now that I am fully self-employed and no longer have a W-2 from ranch payments, it's not a good time for me to go refi, because it's much harder to either refi or buy when you have fully self-employed income without any W-2 income. So, anyways, but speaking of all the records you have to keep when you do want to buy a house or when you do want to rent a new apartment or refinance a house, what about all this paperwork we have? Lisa Sharp, I know you have some elegant systems for managing them.
So a garbage bag with all your papers in it is probably not the best way to do things.
If you have the garbage bags labeled by year and quarter, yeah.
Yes, I think there's stuff I can start getting rid of now.
That's such a tough one, right? Because it's like what's really drilled into our heads, especially around taxes, like you have to keep everything. Mm-hmm. And that's actually really not true. And people keep way more stuff than they need to. And the stuff that they do need to keep is often not very well organized because they've kept everything. Yeah. So, it's like if you just can get kind of clear about what is okay to get rid of and what you need to keep, the system sort of makes itself because you're not dealing with, just boxes and boxes and boxes of paperwork. I mean, generally, people don't have incredibly complicated paperwork needs. It's interesting. I've helped many people with their paperwork, and honestly, that's the number one thing that I hear when people are, they're like, I'm drowning in clutter. I hear that phrase all the time. And it's because we keep everything. We really don't need to. And if you I'll put a link below there, like for the United States, I don't know what it is for Canada. I can do some research and find that out too. But in the US, it's like if you go to the IRS's website, it's like, I don't know, 10 different things that you need to know about your paperwork, and everything else is really superfluous. And it's like we really had it drilled into our heads over our lifetimes that you have to keep 7 years worth of stuff. It used to be 10 years, and it's just like people just sort of like, we're so afraid that we're going to get audited and that we'll just keep everything. And it really is not necessary. And honestly, most of the stuff that you do need to keep in terms of just like bill paying and stuff, if it's not tax related, you don't need to keep it. So people will keep like their electrical bills and their gas bills and their cable bills and all that kind of stuff, and having the hard copies of all of that sort of stuff. And
there are moments when you might need those things.
Absolutely. I was about to say that. If you write those off for whatever reason, if you run a business out of your house, for instance, I am no tax expert, by the way. So this is something you definitely need to be talking to your CPA about what you need to be keeping. But generally speaking, if you, that you don't need to keep all of those things if there is no tax implication. So unless you are writing off some of those bills because there's a medical concern in your house, because if there's if you run a business, or if you work from home a certain period of time out of each week, and again, there are like schedules of like how much time, that you actually work and how much space in your house that you actually use, you can take percentages of your cable bill. Like in my case, we do that with our internet, because I run my business out of my home, and I absolutely use the internet for my business purposes. So, electrical bill, gas bill, water bill, all that sort of thing. So you can take small percentages and write those things off. So in that case, yes, you would keep it. But for most people, you don't do that. Mm-hmm. And they go to a business and it's completely separate, and they work for somebody else. It's like, you don't need to keep all of this stuff. And, What?
The one other thing I'd say with sometimes having proof of residency in terms of renewing your voter registration, or I know for school they needed some form of proof that you lived where you live, which could either be a water bill, something, or a current driver's license. So usually the driver's license is what I use. And the other thing would be like when you rent a new place, if you're a renter, sometimes they do want the history of, for your credit and whatnot, like your last 2 pay stubs and or a old electrical bill.
Right.
So I tend to save those things throughout the year and then have a shredding party when I shred them all. So most of the things, and even with your pay stubs, it's good to save them throughout the year until you get your W-2. Once you get your W-2, you really don't need them. I tend to keep 2 again just in case. Of course, I don't get any anymore, but Stu still has some for a while. So you can keep 2. The last 2 pay stubs is usually all you really need for anything, for any kind of proof that you are employed, that you are paying taxes, that you do have health coverage. Now with, we'll see how long the ACA lasts in Obamacare. At the end of the year, you do have to prove that you've been covered by a policy that fulfills the requirements so that you don't get fined for healthcare right now, but that may change soon. So there are certain things you need for a certain amount of time, Absolutely. But most of them, at the end of a year, you can shred a lot of those things. And then things from 7 years ago, you can shred.
You don't need to keep all of those things. So like in those exceptions, so like I'll give the flip side of this because these are the people that I work with, right? They're like, oh, but I need to keep this. It's like, okay, fine. If you need something like that for your kids' school, like we do here in Georgia, so we always save a water bill because everything else I do is electronic, and I could just print it out, but I do still get paper bills for water for whatever reason, and so I do keep the last one that I've paid, and I know that over the summer that I'm going to need to bring it in when in August when we go register the kids, that I'm going to need that. So like keep 1 or 2 of these things, but you don't have to keep every single one of them because honestly, then you end up dealing with this massive volume of stuff. And when I'm helping people with their paperwork, usually 80% of the stuff that the people have just goes, and it's really easy to get rid of because it's like, yep, don't need that, because we've just got this massive backlog of stuff. You need the year-end statements always, like especially like if you're like any like what Jen was saying about tax or pay stubs rather, or any sort of stocks that you have, or I'm not saying the right word.
Property tax notices, things like that.
Yes. Anything that's like home related, keep that stuff. That really, when it comes to anything that's legally binding, keep all of it. Like that's like the only time that you need to have every single little last bit of paper. If you have a loan, you need to keep that sort of stuff. Again, it's for making sure that your year-end statements are correct. And then once you know that that's correct, then you can let go of all of the supporting documentation as long as you have the year-end statement. So the year-end statements should always be going up in your tax files for whatever year that you are. Yes.
This is my folder where all year long, every medical thing that comes in, every thing for our service dogs, for the kids, and then for each of our businesses, income and expenses. I keep in one little folder.
Yeah.
Right here. And then all of like the 2, if you could see, I have 2 big filing cabinets on either side. That's supporting documents, most of which at some point can get shredded. This is the stuff that I keep it separate and on my desk or next to my desk when I'm filming, because I have 2 computers here. This is really what I turn into my CPA. Like all the receipts in here get put into a medical folder, a business folder for each business has its own folder. And then, it's just itemized deductions. And then I have one for all, the statements that come from retirement accounts, investment accounts, stuff like that, trusts and things, and my HSA. I have one for my HSA, but that's it. That's my legal folder that I turn in.
It's really remarkable how little we need to actually keep.
Yeah.
But we're so afraid that if we throw away this one thing, that it's going to have some sort of really negative implications. And yes, there are very negative implications if we just get rid of everything. We do need to keep some stuff, but we really only need to keep a small portion of the stuff that we are currently keeping. And we get bogged down because if you haven't ever set up a paperwork system and you have what I refer to as the backlog, it's just all the stuff that you have kept for years and years and years. And then a lot of the time people keep their current stuff, current meaning the last year or so, of that group of paperwork, and they get intermingled. And then when it gets intermingled, then you really do get kind of, you're sort of in a quagmire, because you're like, well, I can't get rid of any of this, and it's going to take me so long to get rid of. So then people don't take action. And, paperwork is really, Lisa, it's really about self-care. It really, really is.
It is.
Because it's not glamorous. Yes, it's not super fun. And it is very time consuming. I mean, without a doubt.
But being able to lay your hands on the document you need when the phone call comes and you need it immediately is priceless. I mean, that's a gift to yourself. Yeah.
It's priceless. The amount of stress that people have not being able to lay their hands on, like I'll go to clients' houses, or if I'm working with them on Skype, these are people that have lost their driver's license over and over and over again. They can't find their social security card. They can't find their kids' birth certificates. They can't find their passports.
Wow.
That stuff costs money to replace. It takes time, and it is so freaking stressful. So when one of the nicest compliments that I ever got was from a client here in Atlanta. We created a paperwork system for her. And her husband was sort of like, he wasn't like totally on board with hiring me to help them with this particular issue. And we set it up over a couple of weeks. We just sort of chipped away at it. And I think like within the next couple of months after having set it up, they had an emergency with school, and one of their children had changed schools, and they needed to have the paperwork like literally that night. Like they were at a party. They were talking to some friends, and the friend was like, "Oh yeah, there's an opening at this really great school. You should go apply. The deadline is at midnight." And so they left the party, went home, and because we had created this paperwork system, we were able to find all of those critical things that I was just mentioning within like
minutes,
a couple of minutes. Yeah, and they were both like. They thanked me because of creating this. Of course, we did it together, and they had the mindset to actually put in the work to do this, even though it was really not, it's not super fun to do. But they got their kid into the school. That sort of thing happens all the time, and there are so many opportunities in life that we can miss out on because of this total disorganization with paperwork. And paperwork it is so much about just chipping away at it. It's not. Paperwork is absolutely the most time-intensive, labor-intensive organizational endeavor that you'll have, period. But once you get that under control, your stress level will go down exponentially, and the amount of money and time that you'll save it's just so worth it. This is one of the things, like in my Blueprint membership, we're actually starting the paperwork module. Again, we do this every year, and we're just starting it again. And this is exactly what we do. We set up the paperwork system so that you have a home for this, so when you're going through your current paperwork, it actually can go somewhere. And your stress level, this is like the David Allen getting things done thing. It's like if you can get the information out of your head and into a system, then your overall quality of life goes up, because you're not walking around like, oh, I have to do this thing, I have to do this thing, I have to do this thing, where's that thing, where's the thing. It's really a big energy suck to be walking around in life not having a system. And systems can be they need to be really, really, really simple, because people don't do complicated. We just don't. So, if you need some help with this, come join the Blueprint. Because as you can see, I'm a little passionate about this, and I think it's so valuable. And it doesn't have to be hard, and it's a lot more fun if you can do it with a group of people that are doing the exact same thing, that are in the same situation that you're in, without judgment. Some of us are like, oh my God, don't look at my paperwork, it's so horrible. But honestly, I think most people are dealing with this, and most people have this, they're just overwhelmed. So,
I agree.
And I tend to, the first time I really organized my paperwork was when I read Getting Things Done, David Allen's book. And I had always tried to make it too complicated.
Yeah.
And I went to his A through G simple system. The only thing that I depart from his on is keeping this tax folder, which I'm actually seeing there are a few things down the back that I need to. Oh, okay. That was something. Just checking what that was. That was kind of slipped down the back of one folder. But and that's because I do like to be able to have those to hand. I mean, I feel like to me, he does talk about having one thing on the desk with the things that you're currently working on, and that's kind of what I made that into. Is every time I get a medical bill, every time I get something that will be part of a deduction or has any tax consequence, I slip straight into this folder, because I never want to not be able to put my hands on those things. So, so yeah, the simplicity of system, the fewer places it could possibly be, it makes it so much better. So I highly recommend this. Lisa,
I'm not there yet, but okay. I have evolved from. I mean, I still remember when I hired my first bookkeeper, and I literally handed over a shoebox filled with
receipts,
and I was just like, I don't even know what to do with this. So now every month, everything just goes into one folder, and I give that to my bookkeeper, which I know sounds like, well, that's still not a system, but for me,
it's totally a system.
Putting everything in one place and saying, here, you sort it out. And I pay for that. Like, I pay extra because he has to go through my stuff and sort it out. And he's working on setting up the system for me because he's watching for what my patterns are and what he's regularly logging in my business. So once I got over the shame of like, I don't need to understand this or know this. I just need my last bookkeeper, it was just an envelope that I would hand to her. And that worked for me instead of at the end of the month going, oh my goodness. Now the biggest thing that I struggle with is so many of my payments are online. So I got payments coming out of PayPal. I got people emailing me receipts, and I'm like, do I print these off? What do I do with these? Like, I don't really want to print them off. But so he's just told me, just when you get a receipt, just forward it to me and I'll take care of it. I'm like, brilliant. Let's just put it in a folder somewhere. So
you can also, I don't mean to interrupt about this, but this is something that I do because I deal with the exact same issue. I think a lot of people do. I have a current year email folder. So like in my email browser, it has 2017 tax receipts or taxes. And so every time I get one of those sort of receipts, like you made a payment, blah, 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 it just goes in there. It just gets dropped in there. And of course it's already sorted because it's by date. And then you can start seeing the patterns of, I've been paying this regularly, and you can then organize it even more from there. But just having a place to park it in your email, and then you can go ahead and, if you need to print those out, if you need to forward them, whatever you need to do. But they're just in one place because, a lot of people that deal with paperwork overwhelm are also dealing with email overwhelm.
Yeah, that is really the next, because I've got, 3,000 emails or something.
Bless your heart.
I know. And I go through and I delete them. But what I really need, that's one of the next things
Lisa Sharp's like,
I know.
Let me get my hands on your email.
And I would love to help you, because even setting up folders in that, I'm like, how do I do that? Like, how do I set up a folder, and how do I get things to these basic things that I'm just like, I don't have time for this, so we'll just leave it all in one big folder, and I'll just hope that I can find it when I need to. So now I started, you're going to hate this, I started flagging things. So if it's important, it's flagged. But now all the flagged messages, I've got hundreds of flagged messages. So even now I'm like, I know I flagged it, but where is it in amongst all these flags? So
Thank God for the search function, right?
There's a lot that I still need to do working on systems. But again, I don't beat myself up over it. I understand that that's not my strongest part of my personality or my attributes or whatever. And that's okay. I just have to surround myself with people who know how to do that stuff that can help me. Because what I have proven to myself is I'm capable of learning. Given the right nudge, put in the right direction, then I can roll with things. But I just need that. I need that kickstart. And then I'm like, okay, good. So every quarter in my business, there has to be something that I'm working on that's helping me get more organized. And even within my business, I let my business registration lapse by accident. That cost me a small fortune to have it reinstated, because in Canada, you have to pay the money and then it's got to be published in the Gazette. Who knew that this thing even exists? So you have to pay to have it published. And once it's published and the world can see that you've reapplied, I think it's like a public shaming. We're going to shame you that you have to reapply to your business.
You're bursting my bubble. I thought Canadians were all so kind.
Canadians spend a lot of money on stuff that is ridiculous. Like, really? $500 to like flick the switch? Like, are you kidding? So yeah, and it was because I didn't have my paperwork in order. Like, it just fell through the cracks, right? I'm like, I don't know what this is. It's auto renew.
This is the thing, like, not being organized can cost you a freaking fortune.
Absolutely.
So, like, whenever people are, like, asking me about my fees and stuff, I'm like, dude, I guarantee you will make back whatever it is that
110% agree.
Within a month. I mean, because we are just money leaks all over the place. It's so unnecessary. Okay, so I have two things. So we have an email module in the blueprint.
Okay.
So we deal with the digital clutter in there, my friend. What was the other thing?
I don't know.
45 years old.
But you know what? I totally agree with everything you're saying, Lisa, because with hiring my new bookkeeper and going back and cleaning up, and when I say cleaning up, like, I have old businesses that weren't properly shut down. Like, there is like, it's going to take us 6 months to get everything cleaned up. And it feels so good knowing that we're moving in the right direction, right? Like I said, I'm going back to the government and saying, hey, that tax I need to get back. I shouldn't have paid that to you because I just didn't know. And for me in the past, it's been easier for me to just say, fine, here, take the money instead of actually going to bat and saying, wait a minute, this isn't okay. Right? So right now the government is holding some money from me because I haven't paid GST on an account, which is a tax here, but that account is closed. It's a business that's closed, but it wasn't properly shut down. So as far as the government is concerned, I need to be remitting GST. And until I remit my GST, they're going to hang on to my refund. I'm like, you buggers, right? I could see the money right there.
It's so true though. Like once you're organized, then you can go back to the government. Then you can go back to the doctor's office that overcharged you. Then you can go back to your mortgage company and say, you know what? Actually, I have the records for this. And this is what actually transpired, because it's not like all of these bureaucratic entities have all of their shit together. I mean, there are human beings that are running all of these things. And so, we overpay in things all the time. And so it's nice when you are organized and you don't keep every single one of those things, when you only needed to keep the last two, so that you can pull out a little skinny folder that actually has the information that you need, and you don't have to sift through everything else. It's going to take you hours and days and destroy your dining room in the process. You can make that money back, and it's so comforting to know that you actually know what you're talking about, and here's the dang proof. It's not just that you're like, oh, well, fine. Because I see that all the time with clients where they just pay for things knowing that they really shouldn't, but they don't have the time, money, and effort, or energy to be able to go back and go through their backlog to find the proof to do these things. So it's,
and I think there's so much, for me at least, and I know this is probably for a lot of our viewers, there was so much shame linked into that for me, right? Because I didn't know how to deal with my money. I didn't know how to deal with my paperwork. So I really was just like, I'm covering my eyes. I'm just not going to look and hope it goes away. And if I just pay you the money, will you leave me alone? So it wasn't a lack of not wanting to do it or a lack of time or an inability. There was just so much shame around it. So as I've peeled that back, and as I've realized, I can get on the phone with these government officials, and they're just human beings, and half of them have their own money crap they're dealing with too. So the more I just let go of the emotion I've attached to, like, I don't make this mean anything anymore. The fact that my paperwork still isn't organized doesn't mean anything to me anymore. It's just something I have to work on. And that is really what it comes down to. I think we're all capable. So people should get into your blueprint. Clearly I need to go in and see the modules as well. So that'll be quarter 2 we'll be going through and getting some help with that.
One thing before we wrap up, I think, it's so important, like you said, Lisa, is to always have something like that that's in the background that you are improving on in your life, whether it is your food, your money, your clutter, your paper, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be that you are working on it for long periods of time. It's just doing that little consistent action. Like I'm going to spend more focus on exercising 20 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, because it's 10 minutes more than I had been doing, or drinking my water, or logging into my checking account. Most of these things really only take a very small amount of time, but it's about putting your mind on that thing and committing to saying this quarter, this month, this week, I'm going to focus on this one thing and make it something that it's really doable so that you can feel the success so that you will continue to do it. And then once you kind of ingrain those things, then you don't really think about it and it doesn't take up the same mental bandwidth. So just having something like that. So this is why we do the blueprint the way that we do, where it's only 15 minutes a day and is literally 15 minutes. Like, that's it. Like I'm like stop working, people. Because the point of this is not to get everything organized, in 2 weeks. Yeah. The point of this is to change your habits and change your mindset about the way that you are feeling, and dealing with those feelings of shame and embarrassment and overwhelm and all of that, because we all feel like that. It's, and if you don't look at that, and you don't deal with that, then, it's sort of like setting up this really elaborate system that you're not going to maintain. Then it just sort of reinforces the belief that I can't do this. And that's not true. You can.
You and Jen really should do like a free little 5-day challenge on how to organize your systems and organize your money for our viewers.
It's a great idea.
Throwing that out there.
Or maybe a master class or something.
Right?
That would be fun.
Like do something to just like the basics, some of the basic stuff. I would be there, clearly.
Okay. Awesome. Let's do it. Right? But I was trying to subtly wave my pen because my daughter has a dentist appointment. And I gotta wrap up. So
okay. All right.
I'm like, I'll just be real and just say it. Hey guys, I gotta go. Okay. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment below. We would love to hear what you think, what you struggle with, how you organize your paperwork, what you keep and don't keep, what you need help with.
And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave us a review. I say this every time, and I'm like, what do I say? Please
subscribe, rate, and review.
Subscribe, and rate, and share. This is a fascinating episode where I talked about a lot of things I knew nothing about.
And come over to our
into money.
Yeah, no, it's so good. It's so good. And yeah, clearly I'm a little passionate about this topic.
I love it.
I'm sorry. So come over to our free Facebook group and tell us, what are you working on? What do you need help with? And talking about those things that we're embarrassed and have shame around. Yeah. If you talk about that, you will find that it's not just you. No. All of us are dealing with these same sort of things, and it is so beneficial to just calling it what it is. So thanks so much for coming today. Love this discussion, and Jen and I will be on that challenge that Lisa just came up.
Yeah, I think you guys should do that. Yeah. All right, so until next time, ladies. See you soon.
Bye.